Good morning. The Committee on Children and Families will come to order. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Madam Chair.
Here.
Vice Chair Peters. Yes. Representative Prouty. Koslow. Dolan. Here. Gregg. Here. Hausman. Here. Jameson. Here. Kelly. Here. Lobinger. Here. Loy. Here. Manser. Here. Schmidt. Here. Steinmetz. Here. Terry. Here. Violet. Here. 14 present.
With 14 present, we do have a quorum. First, the committee will move into executive session on House Bill 1072. There's a House Committee substitute ending in .03. It has been distributed. I move for that adoption. Any discussion on the substitute? Representative Representative Manser. You're sitting so close together this morning. I apologize.
There's only one or two vote on it.
Thank you, Madam Chair. To inquire around the handler for the substitute, is that Representative Gregg?
I believe this is because of the amendment, correct?
No, this is just a substitute.
You want to speak to the bill handler?
Well, I have questions about this substitute language that's been distributed. That's the amendment, okay.
Mm-hmm. The substitute is bringing the two bill numbers together, I believe.
Oh, I'm sorry, then never mind.
And removing the referendum clause.
And removing the referendum clause. So, I'm sorry, just to help me with clarification, freshman question. This is not pertaining to the content of the bills. It's about tying the two bills together. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, thank you. Then I'll hold my comments.
Thank you. Any further discussion on the substitute? Further discussion on the substitute?
Okay, sophomore moment there, sorry. Yes, I have an amendment I would like to offer up. It has been distributed, ending in .01H.
Representative, will you please?
Yes. Okay, so I bring this amendment up because during the presentation, I asked the question, and I was told we would have this discussion, and they would consider if this is going to be a true life is valuable moment, and in the bill it does say from conception to natural death. I brought up the topic of, hey, if you're gonna go all the way, then let's make that from conception to natural death. And I asked them about the death penalty in the state of Missouri. If they're going to go that far, then make this a true bill that will reflect that. But it was not. I've had discussion with one of the bill handlers, not willing to go that far, and we have another product on the line right now, and that did not go far enough for them. If you're going to go all the way, then go all the way, and that's what this amendment is for. This is to add on there about the death penalty, because if they want this to be a true abolition bill, then let's make it a true abolition bill.
Any questions on the amendment? Representative Manser.
Thank you, Madam Chair. To inquire about the amendment.
Please proceed.
So I'd like to ask the bill handler, just to make sure I'm fully clear, then this proposal, is it removing the death penalty, or is it imprisonment for life without option for probation, parole, or release?
You're inquiring of the amendment maker?
Yes.
It
Representative?
does say there, and if I'm reading the right place here, first page, line 12, life imprisonment for life without eligibility of probation, parole, or release except by act of the governor.
So follow-up question. So that means that a woman who...
This is for anybody. This is for anybody on death row, anybody incarcerated who has been given the death penalty.
So just for additional clarification for me then, because I apologize, I'm a little confused by this. So what we're saying is this is not pertaining to a woman's loss of a pregnancy, where she could be imprisoned for
This
life.
is not addressing anything from the original bill, what the sponsors already put in. This is simply addressing those that are already incarcerated, have been incarcerated for whatever reason.
So it is not pertaining to criminalizing.
If the bill
woman.
sponsors put in something that somebody could be put on death row, then yes, it would. But that would be something you would have to ask the bill sponsors. This is simply addressing the death penalty.
Okay, this is my last question, I guess, on this one, and I apologize. I'm very confused.
Knowledge is power. Go
I
ahead,
really
ask your
am very
questions.
confused. So, are what we trying to do then is separate from the underlying bill that the bill sponsors, they each have their own similar bill on equal protection. Is this speaking to just the state's perspective on the death penalty? I'm struggling to understand how this fits into what we are trying to address and exec out today, and I apologize for my confusion. It's genuine.
That is a good question. Okay, so in the purposes, in the bill handlers can correct me if I'm incorrect. This is literally, it says that life is precious, life begins at conception, and should go to natural death. So anything that interrupts that is what this bill is covering. So they have addressed the preborn, but they have not addressed those whose lives are ended prematurely and not natural death. This simply adds that portion in. So this is a true life is precious bill.
Okay, I'm sorry, Madam Chair, just to comment.
Proceed.
It's very confusing for me, and maybe not for everyone else sitting here, I think I understand now what the desire is, except that I'm not really understanding how this is constructive and provides any measure of safety or compassion for the people who might be involved in a situation that could lead to this condition. And so, given my cursory understanding of this, I guess I just want to go on record to say that I can't support this, and wish that if we were going to have this conversation, that it would have been a more full and thorough discussion about what our collective desire is as it relates to the people of Missouri. Thank you.
Representative Terry.
To speak on the amendment.
Please proceed.
I have to agree with Representative Mansur. This is confusing, and especially I would like to ask the amendment maker, did you ask the bill carriers if this was okay for you to amend this bill with this?
I had discussions with one of the amendment makers, and I also questioned during the presentation 2 weeks ago. Asked about adding this on to make it a true life is precious bill. During discussion, I was told we can have that discussion. Then when I had that discussion with the opposite bill maker, the other bill maker, there was no desire whatsoever from that bill maker to even have this discussion. So I'm not sure if it was lip service on the original ask or not, but I truly believe that if they're going to try to do a life is precious bill, that it needs to be a life is precious bill.
Okay, so was that a yes or a no that they agreed for you to amend this bill?
They didn't agree or disagree. They shut me down in trying to have the discussion.
Okay, because only thing I can agree with you is life is precious, and no matter who takes it, it is not up to us or anyone to give the death penalty. You know, a lot of times people talk about their religion and whatever. No one should take anyone's life, but only person that I know of that I know that says when it's time for you to go is the Lord Jesus Christ. And so, you know, I have never supported the death penalty, no matter what the circumstances are. So I am confused about this amendment. I don't think it's fair to add such an amendment as this onto their bill. And yeah, this is kind of disappointing. That's all, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Representative. Representative Gregg, I do want to add a comment. When we had had the conversation in committee, I was under the impression that it would apply to this bill, not an overarching abolish the death penalty in Missouri. And for that reason, I will not be able to support this amendment. Representative Prouty, please proceed.
Thank you. To inquire, was the substitute, did we receive the amendment in advance?
The amendment we received upon entering into the hearing this morning, the substitute was a referendum clause removal as well as just combining the bill numbers. That was just procedural.
Gotcha.
Nothing with policy.
And then the amendment is to abolish the death penalty.
Correct.
So I'm going to support the amendment. I'm going to vote no on the bill, obviously. It's immaterial to me whether or not the bill sponsor asked, the amendment maker asked the bill sponsor to put this on here or not, because I'm voting no on the bill regardless. But to the representative's point, I mean, if we're going to be pro-life, let's be pro-life. There have been comments that perhaps this bill and that bill, as it relates to abortion, has not gone far enough. This goes far, so I am going to support this amendment. I appreciate the gentleman bringing it forth because I wholeheartedly agree. If we're going to be pro-life, let's do it. If we're going to say natural life, certainly gas and a concoction of chemicals or what have you to end a life is not natural, and so I'm gonna roll with it. Thank you.
Further questions on the amendment? Representative Kelly,
To inquire, please.
please proceed.
I guess it's mainly just a comment. I respect the representative that brought this amendment to us, but I think this offers a bigger conversation, regardless of whether we believe in the death penalty or not. I think that this needs to go to a different committee, not Children's and Family. But I do appreciate the bill sponsor for bringing this to us. I just don't think it's the right time. Thank you.
Representative Gregg.
Okay. Thank you very much. I appreciate all the feedback on this. Ultimately, you know, I have heartburn with the original bill, not that it's what it's trying to accomplish. I wholeheartedly agree with what it tries to accomplish. Just the fact that there is conflict of other bills not going far enough, and yet the bill was not willing to go far enough, yours. Do I think that this will hurt your bill? Yes, I think it will. That's not my goal. That is not my goal at all. We're up here to do the right thing. We're up here to do the right thing for our people, whether they're in our district, they're within our circles, whether they're in the state. And I really encourage you guys, as bill, sponsors, to ultimately try to do that. So I will withdraw this amendment for the bill to go through. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative. Representative Hausman? Okay. Okay, so I do have a substitute ending in .003C. It has been distributed. I move for the adoption of the substitute. Is there any discussion on the substitute further? Representative Prouty?
Not so much on the substitute. I have to double back to Representative Gregg, who, again, we all know in this committee is a delight. I don't know if I appreciate you withdrawing the amendment, but you're absolutely right. I do believe the amendment would have hurt the bill, and that was absolutely my intention of having supported it. And so, thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you for your comment, Representative Prouty. Any further discussion on the substitute? Seeing none. All those in favor of adopting the substitute signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed say no.
No.
The ayes have it. You've adopted the substitute. I now move that House Committee substitute for House Bills 1072 and House Bills 1417 be voted do pass. Any discussion? Representative Mansur.
So I'm going to be a firm no, and I'm sure that won't surprise people, but I do believe that if we are going to have these kinds of discussions that could ultimately place women under tremendous threat and risk, I believe that it requires more deliberation. That should be a conversation that happens over multiple meetings and could even have included an educational informational hearing. I don't think we have spent enough time unpacking the implications of this bill. Determining that fertilized embryos are children does not actually align with the medical framework, and it will put unnecessary risk for women as to their pregnancy. We as women know that a fertilized egg does not always implant in the uterus and does not necessarily become a fetus. Women lose fertilized eggs through their own natural cycles and through miscarriages that happen naturally where the body does not maintain that. When I was campaigning, I had lots of surprising, candid conversations with women on their front porches about their fears about the actions that this General Assembly might take that would affect any risk to them and privacy related to IVF. There are quite a few women who utilize IVF in order to expand their families, and one woman said, I don't want to be exposed, I don't want to be shamed, and I don't want to feel like there's some kind of criminal threat against me because of any actions that this body might undertake. I do not care for the fact that the bills add the definition of person in the state's criminal code to include an unborn child at every stage of development from the moment of fertilization. I think that this puts women at a terrifying risk of committing a crime, including the offense of murder for miscarriage or even for using medications during pregnancy. I'm not sure about my colleagues here on this committee, but I do know women who take other kinds of medications for health conditions and mental health conditions, and it is possible sometimes those medications may be important and necessary, but they might also come with some risk to that embryo. And I think that what we've done in this bill is we've really put women at the bottom of the stack of any value in this state, which is to say the men who are presenting the bill, the people who are going to make this determination in the General Assembly, that all people stack above what might be happening with a woman and the conditions under which she is living and trying to take care of herself and how her family cares for her. Our bodies and their functioning are not all the same. Everyone knows that. And so for us to take this step does not feel in any way a measure to protect life and safety of all persons involved. And so I will not be able to support this bill. Thank you.
Representative Laubinger,
To comment.
please proceed.
Thank you. So I absolutely agree that life begins at conception and fertilization. To arbitrarily say it begins at some other stage, I don't feel like I have that right to define when someone else is human when they have the human DNA. And that aside, I've talked with both of the bill sponsors. There's some clarifications that I think would be beneficial to this bill, and especially regarding rape and incest and the perpetrator of that and accountability for that, as well as some of the definitions we do have in statute, definition of what abortion is and what it isn't, I think it would be beneficial to include some of those definitions within this framework so that it's not conflated with spontaneous abortion, which is miscarriage, and just so that people can be truly clear on what is being addressed and what isn't being addressed in this bill, to bring about more confidence that this does value women and the struggles that they face, while it also recognizing the value of children, preborn children that have been devalued for 50 years in our country. And so I appreciate the conversations and the opportunity to continue those conversations in the future, probably next year as we again look at this. Thank you.
Representative Schmidt,
Just to comment briefly.
proceed.
Thank you. I always say briefly, and we know that's typically not true, but I try. So I need to echo Representative Lobinger's thoughts in some ways. I completely agree with establishing the sanctity of life. I completely agree with the fact that in my mind, life begins at conception. And I shared during the public hearing part that I believe your attempt is to protect the potential for life, right? And so I wholeheartedly can get on board with that. What I'm struggling with, and I think I voiced that in public hearing too, is as it's currently written kind of in regard to the penalties for the mother and the lack of clarification on the penalties for the rapist. So in those events of rape and incest, I really need us to kind of firm up some of those the penalty portion, and then also the definition piece. And so I am not a hard no today. I am a not at this time, because I really hope we can bring this back and make a few clarifications. Because the initial thought, absolutely, I'm on board with you. But I have some concerns. And again, I've worked with a lot of women in a lot of different scenarios and situations. And so I want to make sure that we are doing everything we can to protect that unborn baby. As Representative Laubringer said, for 50 years we have not done a really good job of that. But I also, on the other side, always have to be mindful of women who maybe are coming out of rape or incest situations, simply because I've sat with a lot of them. And so I want us to firm that up, but please know, I love the intent and what we're trying to do here. I hope to work with you. Thank you. Thank you.
Representative Dolan,
Madam Chairman, just a comment.
please proceed.
I'm a pass on the bill. I don't know what would happen to the millions of fertilized eggs that are currently in frozen status if the power goes out and they lose a couple million at a time. Who gets charged with murder? I think there are a lot of questions. I struggle with the bill. And when the amendment was offered today, I understand that. I struggle with that. I have been one that has instructed juries on death penalty cases. It's a hard thing to do. But under the law, it was required. And I struggle with that. I struggle with the current bill, 1072, 1417. I think there needs to be a lot more work on it. It needs to be a lot more education on it. So I have my doubts, so I'll be a pass.
Representative Hausman.
Thank you, Madam Chair. To inquire.
Please proceed.
I guess really to comment, sorry. Gentlemen, I just want to thank you. I think this is a good start. I think the intent is really well taken, and I know that your hearts are to protect children, and so I do appreciate that. However, I feel that we need a little bit more work on this bill before I could, be a yes. So I look forward to working on this in the future and seeing where we can take this. So I will definitely be a no. Thank you.
Representative Prouty.
And I'll be brief. Thank you for indulging me, Madam Chair, for the
Proceed.
second opportunity to speak in all seriousness. Just for a little historic, sort of context, from my point of view. One of the concerns that people, our constituents, had with the first iteration of of banning abortion here, were some of the penalty stipulations. And I think that is going to be a huge concern going forward and something to consider if serious about embedding definitions and things like that. I agree with Representative Dolan wholeheartedly, and something else that was mentioned is that eggs can be fertilized and not implanted. What then becomes of that? There are concerns about various types of unsustainable pregnancies. What becomes of that? And so I think Representative Schmidt and Houseman are absolutely correct when we're talking about there has to be some more education and just a knowledge base of what we're doing so that the court solely isn't just kind of lost on the interpretation of what the legislature meant by putting certain things in statute that aren't necessarily clear. We have a lot of circuit courts here, and it would be interesting just for one to set the case law, and then that's the reference, and it could get pretty confusing. So to the point of everyone else, I think there's just so much that needs to be cleaned up, clarified, and honestly to consult with, I guess, your conference to see how comfortable even they are with some of these penalty provisions in this bill. I think Representative said it best when she said that it kind of puts women in a very awkward position, particularly those who have been victims of rape and incest, to say, hey, we're going to charge you with murder. Those of us who take medications, who makes pregnancies not viable, and that medication kills what has been an implanted embryo, then what? All of those things are things that need to be clarified in statute, and at this point in session, I just don't think we have time to do that on the floor, get that over to the Senate and have a Senate carrier for it to get it to the governor's desk. And so just things for consideration. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Representative. Any further discussion? Representative Kelly.
So we all know this isn't going to go anywhere. To me, this is a life vote, and that is why I'm going to vote. I know many of you all have your own convictions. We all know this needs work. We all know that it'll be brought back next year with the work that we have suggested. I hate to put a negative mark on a good life bill. I just hope everybody thinks about that. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative. I have a couple of comments for the bill sponsors and for the committee. First of all, gentlemen, I see your heart. I know what you're trying to do, and I'm with you. I agree with my Republican colleagues in stating that this is a life bill, so I also will be a yes. However, as we well know, to the extent that we are in session, that this bill will not be moving this session, I really am hoping that you hear my heart in stating that please take the committee's comments and suggestions into account when you bring this bill back next year. To Representative Lawbinger's point, I have some concerns on the criminalization of things. Who gets to say what's criminal and what isn't in these specific cases? So I'm having a little bit of an internal issue with that. But I also agree with Representative Hausman and Schmidt and Kelly's sentiments on this. So we are here. We're here to do the hard things, so we are going to take a vote on this. The committee is free, as always, to do exactly as they wish, but we will move forward then. So thank you for the committee for all of your considerations and your comments and questions. I now move that House Committee substitute for House Bills 1072 and 1417 be voted do pass. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Madam Chair?
Aye.
Vice Chair Peters?
No.
Representatives Prouty?
No.
Koslow?
Pass.
Dolan?
Pass.
Gregg? Hausman? No. Jameson?
No.
Kelly? Lobinger? Present. Loy?
Do we pick her up? Do you have to be on?
Loy? Oh. Manser? No. Schmidt? Steinmetz? No. Terry? No. Violet?
Present.
Coslow? Dolan? Gregg? Schmidt?
With your vote of 3 aye, 7 no, and 5 present, you have failed to adopt the substitute. Excuse me, you have failed to do pass.